Many of you know about The Late Late Show for all the wrong reasons. When you hear the title of this talk show, it conjures up an image of some fat, talentless British hack clogging up the LA freeway to dance in a mouse costume you'd find on Epstein's Island. It makes you think of the boundless controversies surrounding the host James Corden and how he, much like Ellen, put on a fake smile but made everyone around him want to jump off a 30-story building. This wasn't always the case. In fact, the show wasn't always that punk rock either. The story of The Late Late Show is really interesting, actually, and its downfall is really depressing. So, sit right there, grab some ketamine, a juice box, your favorite brand of lube. We're going to talk about late-night public access TV. The Late Late Show aired on January 9th, 1995, and was hosted by this rather 1970s-looking man who died. His name is Tom Snyder. Prior to The Late Late Show, Mr. Snyder was mostly known for radio and being an anchor at KYW.
Hello, this is Tom Snyder. Please join us for the Contact program Thursday morning. Thursday morning at 9 o'clock. I'm sorry.
All of that changed when the David Letterman attacked... well, he didn't attack. You see, David's show, The Late Show with David Letterman, had a production company called Worldwide Pants Inc., and when they moved to CBS to make The Late Show, they were allowed to create another show that would immediately follow The Late Show at the 12:30 a.m. time slot. So, being the genius that he is, David Letterman came up with another talk show simply called The Late Late Show. Pretty smart, right? Because, like, you know, it's at midnight, it's not late, it's late. We got some real smart people in television, don't we? Now, I wasn't around when The Late Late Show first aired, but just watching this George Carlin interview, I can tell that Mr. Snyder, God bless him, was treating the show as if it was still the 1970s.
Congressman Army, who's the majority leader,
bright person.
very bright man, saw that Bob Hope died on a misdirected AP advance wire, and had it read to the floor of the House of Representatives.
Yeah.
And I thought to myself, how can they not check to find out if Bob is still alive before they announce he's dead?
Make a couple of calls.
Yeah, just one
corroborating person who says, yeah, I saw him.
You know, he's very prim and proper, the questions are pretty thought-provoking, and he keeps a relative professionalism that your 80-year-old conservative grandmother would get all moist and gushy in her Depends for. The guy would be a great choice if you want a serious PBS documentary, or needed a no-nonsense news anchor, which, again, he originally was. So you can't be too mad about the way he hosts, but I can definitely see why he wasn't popular. CBS, also seeing this, wanted to bring a more youthful crowd to The Late Late Show's time slot. So, CBS did what any great production company does. They cut ties with Mr. Snyder for a newer and more energetic host. Following the departure of Tom Snyder in 1999, CBS pondered who could replace one of the best news anchors in America. Looking through all the different personalities and actors, they finally settled on another anchor, but this time it was a sports anchor, Craig Kilborn. What is it with the show and hiring Craigs? Now, this was actually a really good move because Mr. Kilborn was the host of ESPN SportsCenter, and from the little bit I remember of my dad watching the show, it was pretty high energy, and I remember the guys on there at least laughing pretty often. Look, I was a dumbass little kid in the 90s. I was more focused on what SpongeBob was doing versus sports. Not only was it the right pick due to SportsCenter being more youthful and energetic, but Mr. Kilborn was actually the late-night host of SportsCenter, so he could do late night. During his time at SportsCenter, Mr. Kilborn had gained a reputation for his humor and deadpan delivery, which helped him get his next gig before The Late Late Show. Now, Mr. Kilborn did SportsCenter from 1993 to 1996, but before getting the Late Late Show gig, he actually was the original host of The Daily Show on Comedy Central before America's favorite Jew, Jon Stewart. I mean, just watching this one intro monologue from his Late Late Show run, where he's making a joke about a black guy being on Friends, was probably pretty risky for the late night circuit back in the 90s.
Last night, watching TV, switching back and forth between NBC and the Laker game, and for a second, I could swear I saw a black guy on Friends. Just for a second. It looked like...
And that kind of humor could only come from somebody who's mostly worked in cable, particularly at Comedy Central at the time. Needless to say, thanks to Mr. Kilborn, The Late Late Show found its footing as a traditional funny late-night talk show with some edge. Unfortunately, in 2014, Mr. Kilborn grew tired of the late-night circuit and wanted to pursue other avenues of creativity and left. So once again, CBS chewed up another host and spat out their charred remains. They sought a new host now, one that would push the envelope even further and bring the show into what many consider its perfect form. I'm talking, this show went from imperfect cell to semi-perfect cell, and then BAM! CBS opened up its tail vagina and popped out its super perfect cell form. It skipped a whole fucking evolution. Now, Craig Kilborn was a good host. From all the clips I've watched, he is genuinely funny and is on par with David Letterman, and without him, we wouldn't have gotten the best iteration of The Late Late Show, since he kinda made the censors and producers more comfortable with being more cutting edge and making more risky jokes. Now we get into why this show was considered punk rock. 2 words: Craig Ferguson. Those aren't even words. Those are proper nouns. That's how punk rock it's gonna get. Mr. Ferguson was never an anchor like the last 2 guys. He was never a newscaster or a host or a star of some obscure Scottish TV show before making it into the States. By the way, he's Scottish. No. Craig Michael Ferguson started his career as a drummer for some Scottish punk bands that included Bastards from Hell, really spooky name, Exposure, and no, they never whipped their cocks out as far as I know, and eventually the Dream Boys, which the less said about that band, the better. This Scottish guy who auditioned for The Late Late Show wasn't like the other hosts, and I don't mean that in the you'll never find another girl like me kind of way. He literally wasn't like any of the other auditions. Mr. Ferguson had tattoos, he was friends with Peter Capaldi, and he was Mr. Bing Hitler himself.
Not ordinary drinking when you go out at night and have 20 pints of lager 9 off to an Indian restaurant. I don't mind that, at least that's normal.
Which, if you don't know, that was a parody character he invented, and he named him Bing Hitler. Eventually, after getting the gig, Mr. Ferguson decided to push the edgy humor in a more blended, edgy, absurdist way. Where most talk show hosts had a simple sidekick, Mr. Ferguson had a gay skeleton robot voiced by some asshole who's currently interning at Red Letter Media.
And so, if you do not keep dancing, then I will kill you all, I will destroy all your buildings.
Where most talk shows had a band and nothing more, Mr. Ferguson had a band and a dancing gimp. And a 6-foot-tall black guy, and puppets. And hot chicks in bikinis. Where most talk shows did rehearsed, unfunny skits that made you want to sound with a rusty nail till your pee hole bled yellow and green, here, you'd get a dude dressed as a horse inspect you before allowing the host to even talk to you. Hell, where most talk shows kept it clean and friendly and got so embarrassed when a guest would do something vulgar, Craig Ferguson had a dedicated team of people whose job was solely dedicated to muting and blurring out any swear words because he just couldn't resist swearing. This was the one talk show where you could fucking swear and they would let you because they could catch it in time to censor it. That hasn't been done since. Mostly because talk shows are dead, but still. The only time I've seen something like that happen on a talk show was one episode of Conan O'Brien where they were promoting the Deadpool movie, but it was just a one-off thing though. Also, at the end of the show, there would be a section called What Did We Learn on the Show Tonight, which was supposed to parody those really safe and family-friendly talk shows by adding a fake moral lesson. You didn't learn anything on it though.
What did we learn on the show tonight, Craig?
I like it when that kitty does that.
The Late Late Show with Craig Ferguson embodied everything that opposed traditional television and reveled in its weird absurdist humor like a pig in slurry. It was unbothered and untainted by production pressure and studio interference. If CBS wanted to appeal to a younger and more wild demographic, they had found their man. I mean, when I was a kid, I barely watched late night shows. Sometimes me and my dad would watch Conan, and we thought he was pretty funny, but then one night, I stayed up late on a school night and came across Craig Ferguson. I was pretty late to the Late Late Show's iteration with Craig Ferguson when I found him though, so I wasn't really caught up on all the humor, but immediately took to it. It was just wild to me that a talk show host was bouncing jokes off of a gay skeleton robot. It was just so weird, it felt like I was tripping balls or something, like I just did a line of DMT. Hell, I remember running into the front room and turning off whatever my dad was watching to make him watch this Scottish guy talk to a gay skeleton robot. He was pretty pissed at first, but he started laughing, and eventually it became a tradition in our house to actually stay up late and watch the show. And when school started, we would just DVR it and watch it before me and my dad were going to work and school. From 2015 all the way up to 2023, we had a near decade of some of the best interviews and interactions ever filmed for TV. But, much like your childhood, things have to get ruined by that fat, creepy uncle no one likes, and eventually, Craig Ferguson was burnt out and decided it was time to move on.
When the recipients are receiving their awards, don't stand at the back of the stage with your hands in your pockets, looking around as though you wished you were any...
Now, this era of the Late Late Show, I can't say much on. I knew James Corden from like one episode of Doctor Who and nothing else. When he was announced as the new host, I figured I would give him a shot. I mean, Craig Ferguson seemed pretty happy to hand the show over to him. What could go wrong?
Just want to say, James, I'm delighted it's you. I'm delighted you're taking over.
I watched like 3 episodes, and it was the most depressing shit I have ever seen. Gone were the days of a manlet gimp playing the ukulele. Gone were the bikini babes and horse costumes. Gone were the obscure references to Scotland no one understood, but still laughed at. But worst of all, gone was the gay robot.
You throw beads and you go shooting.
What replaced Craig Ferguson was a shell of what the show had evolved into. The sections of the show with interviews had become fake and safe, laughs were forced, and the show became more PC. They went back to the basic talk show formula, and in doing so, they went back to being the basic bitch sipping Starbucks and wearing Uggs. They even did the cardinal sin of all talk shows, and that's to make them so prepackaged and insufferable that it led to carpool karaoke.
What? Who knew? Sing it, James.
Which is just a really forced good time skit. I mean, the show had gone the way of every hot goth chick you went to high school with. You know, you leave high school, and then all of a sudden, she just becomes a middle-class suburban mom. What the hell? I'm not gonna get too into the host controversy here. There's literally thousands of other videos out there that go into depth on how two-faced James Corden is. I mean, around the time the show's ratings were dropping, a lot of Hollywood people got exposed as being secret assholes, so there's really no room for more of that here. All I'll say is James Corden was the perfect choice for an unfortunately devolving industry that was desperately trying to hold relevance in a world that was outgrowing them. With the creation of podcasts, the late-night talk show was slowly becoming a relic of a bygone era, something akin to a speakeasy of the 1920s suddenly becoming a regular, full-functioning bar. CBS themselves admitted that they chose James Corden for his upbeat personality and theater roots. This isn't really a bad thing. I mean, after all, Ellen was popular for a reason, so it makes sense why he would become popular. But coming off of something as real and significantly different like Craig Ferguson's run, it felt so lifeless and boring. I think the saddest thing about the show ending is the fact that on YouTube, the Late Late Show channel is all James Corden era stuff. I mean, not only that, but he's the literal face of the channel icon as well. That means if you ever talk to future generations about how great the Late Late Show was and talk shows in general, they'll have to look really, really hard to find the Craig Ferguson stuff. You know, politics aside, the downfall of late-night talk shows is almost 100% on the studio's fault, and this is because they were trying to play it so safe that the studios didn't bother to look around them and see what people actually wanted. More people were gravitating toward interviews on podcasts at the time than they were talk show interviews on television. With a podcast, it's more relaxed. You don't have to really worry about, like, producers and studio heads. You could actually get a real sense of the person that was being interviewed and not the persona that they had created to promote a movie. All the producers for these talk shows were stuck in this pre-internet era mentality. And just like everything that comes to an end, this had to come to an end because it wasn't sustainable anymore. I firmly believe that because of how outdated the talk show formula was in the 2020s, that is the actual reason as to why talk shows have been canceled and taken off the air. Nobody wants to see something that fake. They want to be able to gauge a person for who they are based on what they're saying freely without having to have some kind of corporate lawyer in their ear to make sure that they don't say something wrong. They want that realism, and Craig Ferguson's show kind of did that. Nobody knew what to expect because he was always randomizing the show and always making these weird skits that were pushing the boundaries. It made people break their facade and relax. In some ways, I'm going to miss talk shows. They were something cozy and niche, and a lot of pop culture moments came from them. In other ways, I'm glad they're gone. Having seen them lose their identity and become something to akin to a teacher telling you, no, don't do that, it ruined the magic and nostalgia of watching someone like David Letterman do his Christmas special. The only consolidation I have is at one point, for one decade, for one shining moment, one talk show was more than a talk show. It was punk rock.
I've enjoyed a lot of shows, but this has been one of my favorites. Everything that happened tonight really happened.